Welcome back. David Hertel in for Elias. Every time I hear those two words, via rail, I roll my eyes. Oh, dear. I can't believe that a country like Canada, which was originally built 1867, Confederation, happened to build. The goal was to build a railroad and build a system. That's what built the country. But let's face it, Via Rail is in the worst shape it's ever been, it seems. What needs to be done to save the country's train system? Why doesn't Canada finally have a national high-performance rail or high-speed rail system like other countries? Let's hear more from a pair of experts on this very important topic, especially facing the climate change crisis. We have Tony Turrittin, a retired York University sociology professor and a longtime advocate for public transportation. And we have Greg Gormick, a transportation analyst and policy advisor. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
So let's start with you, Tony. I don't understand. I've traveled. I've been lucky enough to travel all around the world. There are high-speed train systems in every modern country. Why is Canada still lagging behind? Why don't we have the TGV, a high-speed rail? Why can't this happen in Canada? I don't get it.
Well, I argue that it's not high-speed rail that we need. We need just conventional, well-run passenger trains that will attract people out of their cars and meet up with the global climate threat that's facing us.
So we don't even have that. No, but I mean, so what you're saying is that we don't even have a system right now. Forget about high speed. We don't even have a system that provides, what people need to get out of their cars. Is that right?
Exactly. So the article I wrote for the Institute for Research on Public Policy was to say, well, you look around the world and you can see lots of examples. In fact, if you just lift your head up a little bit, you'll see south of the border in the United States that their government-owned rail service, Amtrak, is taking off. And they're adding regional trains, but it's a collection of factors that we've called high performance rail. It's actually it's not my term, it's not Greg's term. It's a term that someplace came out of the ether, but it describes the package that you need to have that will bring the mobility back to regional areas, that is between intercity services, that will attract people out of their cars and will also provide for people who don't drive altogether.
And the first piece of the package is politics. That's what stops it.
Exactly.
In Canada. It's the only thing that stops it, never has.
But why, Greg? I don't get it. Look, I was a provincial cabinet minister for almost 5 years, and in Quebec.
Well, Quebec has been more advanced than any other province. David.
Really? It doesn't feel like it.
In fact,
it doesn't feel like
it.
it.
That the railway's being rebuilt in Gaspésie right now. If it wasn't for Quebec, this wouldn't be happening.
But, like, for example, so the capital, the provincial capital is Quebec City, right? And
right.
I was in Montreal. And when the National Assembly sits, taking the train is just not feasible. I mean, the schedules are all wrong. There's so many stops. It takes forever to get to Quebec City. It's not working.
They could knock 30 minutes out of that schedule right now if they made CN handle it properly, if they did all the right things with the equipment. They just don't want to. And the politicians have played with this, and I've known all of them. I just traded messages this morning with David Collinette, one of the few transport ministers who really did a good job. And you know what he was up against?
No.
He was up against Paul Martin, a future prime minister who had owned a bus line, a steamship company, a trucking company. He and John Manley tried to stop David from getting the money to just help Via a little bit, and it was Jean Chrétien who said, I believe in the trains. He was the one who cast the deciding vote. But David has often said to me, "You've never sat at a cabinet table. You should see what goes on."
Well, it's always when you're in cabinet, it's always, especially at the provincial level, and we talked about this. I mean, there's always healthcare, there's always education, there's always something else,
Transportation always falls by the wayside,
Right.
and yet at the top of all of my reports, I put a simple slogan: access plus mobility equals destiny. And until the politicians get that, they are going to let us fall further and further behind other countries. And I just finished watching, for the book I'm working on, I just finished watching the Sunset Limited go through Tucson, Arizona. This train runs 3 days a week. Half of the cars were financed by the Canadian Export Development Corporation. This train was only 33 minutes late at Los Angeles. It had come from New Orleans, Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, Tucson, Yuma. How could they do it with our cars and our money, and we got nothing?
And we have corridors where there's a high demand of travel between cities like Toronto, Belleville, Kingston,
and the
Montreal,
and the Prairies,
and Sherbrooke, for instance. There's a pair that should have hourly service or better. And actually, there are two choices of routes that could be used to develop such and that's what high performance rail does. We're not inventing a new super technology that somehow requires mountains of money to produce.
No, and it's incremental, as you often point out, Tony.
Track.
You can do a little bit at a time. We don't even have to go the full route to electrification to start, because the trains are diesel electric and they're very efficient. The new ones that VIA's getting for this phony baloney high-frequency thing, which will never run on it because it'll never be built. They'll simply replace the dying trains VIA has now. Those trains are good for 125 miles per hour, 200 kilometers per hour. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel to do this. We just need the political will.
Speaking with Tony Turrittin and Greg Gormick, transportation policy experts. So you say the politics is a problem. We just a few months ago, billions of dollars to save the airlines.
Oh, $8 billion, David.
But
and
no
then
money.
$2 billion more for the aerospace
And
sector.
we had Bombardier. I mean, I know Bombardier went through, a hard time over the past few years. They sold off the rail division, but at the same time, why aren't we developing these industries? I still don't get this, especially with climate change. I mean, so is there no lobbyists? Is there no industry? Is there no political will for this? Because look, right now we're not talking about this during the federal campaign. Nobody's talking about this.
I'll tell you what's happened. In all the destruction of VIA over the years, we've lost the good people. The last one good person at VIA who came back here from Amtrak, and I knew him from the time we worked at Canadian Pacific. I don't know why, but he's only been back for 4 years. He's going out the door into retirement in November, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the last bit of institutional knowledge left in VIA, which never should have been formed the way it was.
So what's the solution, gentlemen? I mean, let's say, both of you, Tony and Greg, I'll say, Greg, you're the federal transport minister. Tony, I'll name you provincial transport minister. What do you do? What's job one?
Change the governance, and then you give me.
But what does that mean? What does that mean?
It means we adopt the California style of governance, which is called a Joint Powers Authority, and that puts the control in the hands of the municipalities, the regions along the route, and they have to come up with a business plan, and they have to meet it in order to get the federal and the provincial money, because the provinces get a free ride on this one. They build the highways that are the main competition, but they won't put a cent up for the railways. Oh, that's not our job,
Now putting on my hat as the provincial spokesperson.
Yeah,
that's the first thing. The equipment is not the problem. Then you let me go get guys like my buddy Dave Gunn, the most knowledgeable passenger railroader in North America, who's in retirement, a former head of Amtrak and the 5 biggest transit systems in North America. He's sitting down on Cape Breton. That man has more knowledge in his little thumb or finger than the whole VIA executive group put together. You let me bring in those people who don't want second careers, but they are just, their guts are turning watching something they love being destroyed.
Tony, the last word?
Connectivity and a network. You need to be able to get on your transit or commuter train, end up making, if you're making a 150-mile trip like Toronto, say, Windsor, and take the train, and to do that at any time of the day, not have to worry too much about reservations, in comfortable equipment that's reasonably fast. And if we do something like that in the province of Ontario, you'll see people attracted from the superhighway 401 in large numbers. People are actually waiting. Train riding is highly popular wherever it's introduced if the equipment is good and the service is good and there's reliability.
I'm going to have to leave it at that, gentlemen, but I really appreciated the spirited discussion, and thank you, and hope.
Oh, thanks,
I really hope you keep working at it. We get somewhere with this, because I think this is a really important file. Thanks again, and have a great weekend.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, David.
You too.
So,
Thanks, Tony.
Take care. Tony Turrittin is a retired York University sociology professor and longtime advocate for public transportation, and Greg Gormick is a transportation analyst and policy advisor.